to talk about coaching versus therapy, because we've had a couple of students lately reach out to us asking about clients who are struggling with medical and mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, alcoholism, extreme anxiety, who are actually also working with an allied healthcare team. So allied healthcare team could be anybody from a GP, general practitioner, to a qualified counsellor, psychologist, psychotherapist, psychiatrist, nutritionist, dietitian, things like that. And when you are trying to work with a client, and I say trying because no matter what you try to do to help your clients who are experiencing deeper cognitive psychological issues or struggling with various aspects of mental health, even if it's anxiety and depression, and there's various different types of anxiety and depression, especially alcoholism and AA meetings and needing to have a caseworker to rehabilitate in some way, shape or form. If you are trying to coach these particular clients who are already receiving therapeutic treatment from other qualified professionals for deeper psychological issues or mental health issues or rehabilitation protocols, then it's not going to serve you as a holistic life coach to attempt to work outside of your scope of practice, which you shouldn't be, and I encourage you not to. Please work within your scope of practice. And unknowingly, sometimes you could place yourself into the position of becoming a crutch for your clients if they are not showing up and actioning your goals, their goals that they have set. If they haven't taken action, if they haven't done them, if they are using your sessions as a therapy session to offload, to complain, to focus on negative stuff in their lives, if they are not able to work with you willingly to look forward beyond their current situation at potential resolution, potential alternative ways to think or feel or behave in their lives, then what you are trying to do with them via your coaching may not be helpful for them at the current stage of recovery or healing that they may be in. And this is why I recommend you do not try to work with those kinds of clients, particularly not while you are learning, because coaching is not therapy. Now, having said that, there is an absolutely beautiful potential for us to do some therapeutic work, some healing, energy, emotional clearing with our clients. That is not therapy, but it is therapeutic for the client to be able to resolve what is unresolved, to express what has been not expressed or suppressed or repressed. More suppressed. We don't want to accidentally open up old wounds or trauma by having someone focus on things that have been repressed. We want to gently approach that. But again, that is something that should be done with trauma-informed care. And that takes skill and training, because we're not just working with beliefs, we're working with biology of our nervous system and the wiring in the nervous system from freeze and overwhelm, from chronic states of stress, things that have been too overwhelming for the nervous system to process when we're in a younger, vulnerable, sensitive state. So getting back to, we can still offer therapeutic coaching. We still have to work within our scope of practice. So please make sure that you are working within your scope of practice. If you have no prior therapeutic training in counseling, psychology, mental health counseling, etc., or nutritional dietitian, training for that matter, please do not work with people who are already seeing allied healthcare professionals in a team, because you might hinder their progress. You might accidentally become a crutch for them. You will struggle to try and help those people because they will still not be in a position to be able to help themselves and take proactive steps towards a better future. Because if they're still stuck in their past, if they're still stuck in their patterns, they need to be able to get a handle on that before they can actually start to focus forward. Now, going back to the therapeutic aspect of coaching and emotional energy clearing, which is something I'm writing about at the moment for a brand new module that is being inserted into the Mind Body Practitioner stage between stress and neuroscience. Now, neuroscience module was updated last week. The stress module is actually complete already. I have completely updated that with over 10 new pages of content. It's awesome. But I'm not updating that just yet because I want to get closer to finishing the emotional energy clearing module, which is really going to help you work from the bottom up with somatic exercises and energy tools to help you help your client clear out some of that emotional residue and that energy, that excess energy that chronic stress can instill in the body, so that they can revert to a calm state. They can start to self-soothe. They can co-regulate with you in session and use these exercises and tools to bring their body back into stable balance, so that in that calm state they can sit with the discomfort of certain feelings that are challenging for them, that are overwhelming for them, and get used to the sensations physically, the emotions that are coming up for them in those difficult situations, those difficult emotions, and be able to show themselves that they can process them, they can live through them, they can feel into them, they can be in their body in that discomfort and still feel safe and okay with you and in their lives. Now, that is a step, that's a process. And a lot of the tools that I'll be putting into the emotional energy clearing will help you do that, which will add to your toolkit for therapeutically helping your clients heal. It still does not replace trauma therapy. Please understand that. But there are different types of trauma, from little traumas that can still have a profound impact in a person's ability to show up in their adult life. And then there are, the obvious traumas that are going on around the world at the moment with all the atrocities that are happening and how that is going to impact the lives of all those people who are living through that trauma. So trauma is not always obvious. It's not always in your face. It is not always about the things that, of course, we understand would provide trauma. Sometimes the traumas that we carry in our adulthood are traumas that affected us in childhood, that were too overwhelming for us to process, to understand, to get our heads around, that was just too much emotion that overwhelmed our nervous systems as children. That's the kind of trauma that is the small little traumas that can add up over a lifetime and keep showing up as adults in the patterns of behavior, the patterns of thinking, the people pleasing, the judgment and criticism, the shaping ourselves to fit other people instead of feeling okay to show up authentically with others and know that our feelings matter, that we as people, our voices matter, because we didn't learn that in childhood. Now, I've got a fantastic example of that. I have a dear friend who is Australian but lives overseas. She is currently doing a year at a very prestigious university that turns out isn't quite as supportive a culture as what she thought. She's really qualified. She's a published author. She has done so much writing. She's worked for an editing house. However, she still doubts herself. She still wants people's approval. She still wants her teacher's approval. She still thinks everything she writes is not good enough. And a lot of this is entwined in her inner child constantly being rejected. Unfortunately, she grew up in a household where her biological father wasn't in the picture at all, and she took that as a personal rejection. Unfortunately, her mother rejected her and criticized her constantly. Her stepfather rejected her as his own and favored his biological children who came after. And subsequently, her siblings, her half-siblings, also rejected her and copied the behaviors and the beliefs of her parents in making her feel like she didn't belong. And this constant rejection of not feeling like she was welcome in her own family, that there was always something wrong with her, that she looked different, she behaved differently, it constantly ate away at her. And this is something that has plagued her entire adult life. This morning when I spoke to her over FaceTime, there was another event that had happened in the school where she's studying. And again, she felt rejected. And again, she felt that she was being really nice and accommodating to the people around her, but that they were poorly treating her. And I straight away, as any good friend should, told her that those people don't deserve to be her friend, because if they were treating her like that, if they were blocking her, if they were being rude to her, if they were ignoring her, if they were making her feel so small, then they obviously were not being a friend. And I asked her, are these the kinds of people that you want to be friends with? Because you're accepting their bad treatment of you because you think that's all you're worth. And this accidentally turned into a tapping session. You know, I don't know if you guys know, but the Tapping Solution Summit is currently on at the moment, the EFT Emotional Freedom Technique Summit. And I started talking with my friend, and she was talking about her anger at this treatment, even a teacher yelling and swearing at her in this prestigious university. And she was feeling very angry, very frustrated, but felt helpless to do anything about it because she doesn't think she has the right to speak up because her voice doesn't matter. This is the belief that she has, even now at her age in late 40s. So we started tapping. We started using emotional freedom techniques. And I actually did nearly a half an hour of working through this anger and this frustration. And then we also came back to this feeling of rejection, this neediness she has for other people to approve of her and give her their approval so she can feel validated and feel worthy enough and lovable enough. And I asked her directly, when did this first happen? When did this feeling of being rejected and embarrassed first happen? And she straight away had this story from grade 1 when she went to a new school, and a bunch of 6-year-old boys circled around her. They hurtled mean things at her, and they punched her and kicked her. This is a little 5-6-year-old girl being surrounded by a group of 5-year-old, 6-year-old boys, punching and kicking her, being mean, and no one stopped them. No adult, no teacher came and stopped them in the schoolyard on her first day at school when this was happening. So I took her back to that situation. I asked her to imagine her adult self walking into that circle, standing next to her little 5-6-year-old self. And I asked her to stand up for that little girl. I asked her to directly look at those boys and tell them what they were doing was wrong. Tell them what it is that she wished some adult, some teacher had have said to those boys when she was so small, so vulnerable, so embarrassed, so picked on and being bullied. And I asked her to stand up for herself, just to imagine it. And we were still tapping and going through the meridian points at this stage. And I've got to tell you guys, I was actually sitting there at my kitchen bench and I was polishing my jewelry. I was cleaning my jewelry while I was on FaceTime with her and giving her the moment and space to just say what it is in her mind that she needed to say to these bullies, these 6-year-old bullies who didn't know any better, who weren't taught that's mean, and who didn't know the impact of their words or even their physical violence towards this other little girl who was only 5 or 6. And this was just a very natural process that enabled her to be there for herself, to be there for a part of herself that was feeling vulnerable and embarrassed and bullied when she was only 5 or 6 years old, in grade 1. And that was a very therapeutic process to take her through, to give her the power as an adult to put herself back into that situation as a child and feel as if someone else, someone older, and she actually said to me, I'm looking down at all these little boys, they're so small. because she stepped into that circle as an adult, so she could see from a different perspective, and her ability to actually look down and look at those little boys and see them for who they were, just scared little boys who thought they were being funny, who didn't realize the power and the impact of their bullying words, their mean, hurtful words, to this little vulnerable girl who was only 5 or 6. So there was a lot of healing that we were able to do by her standing into this old memory with her younger self and standing up to those little bullies, telling them what she needed them to hear on behalf of her younger self. It was beautiful. I didn't need to know what she was saying. I didn't need to hear it. I let her say that in her own mind's eye. But being able to guide her through that process and being able to support her after that of what do I do with this now? I've told them all what they needed to know. I've stood up for myself. I then asked her to get down at eye level with her inner child, this young little girl, and then tell her younger self what she needed to hear, what she wished that somebody else had said to her at that time. Now, the key thing here is we're dealing with emotions and we're dealing with memories. And when the brain puts memories and emotions back together, it's always from a very internal perspective, number one. But number two, the memories are never perfect. We always have a bias of how we recall memories. We recall them according to the way we interpreted them emotionally. So we don't always capture the wider lens, the wider view. We don't always see it from anybody else's point of view. We only see it from the point of view of what it meant to us, how much it hurt us, how it left us feeling. And those emotions get attached to that memory, and they wire in a belief from that experience to keep us on high alert whenever we find ourselves in a very similar situation that alerts our nervous system, whoa, hang on a minute, this might not be safe. And this is what was actually being repeated in her school environment, in her college environment, where her teacher was bullying her and being mean to her, saying hurtful words. And she was embarrassed in front of the entire class. And this triggered her emotional vulnerability of feeling like the same that she's always felt, that her opinion doesn't matter, that she's ridiculous, that her voice is not allowed to be heard, and that this is always happening to her. People always bully her. People always do this to her. So this process of being able to take her back into this memory as an adult and to confront the bullies and to remember, hey, they're only 5-year-old boys, 6-year-old boys. They didn't know any better at that time. And it's really, really unfortunate and sad that nobody stood up for her. But she had the ability to do that for herself just by placing herself into this memory and altering it, altering the way her brain forms this memory. And after we'd done that work and she spoke to her younger self, I asked her to pick up her younger self and take her into the future, in the moment. And then we did this beautiful process where she hugged her younger self, told her all of the things that she was willing to do. She actually said to me, she told her she would now be her guardian angel and that she would love and protect her. She admitted she'd made many mistakes, but that she's learning and she's willing to do better. And her younger version of her felt very safe and okay with that. And so we were able to merge her younger self into her heart space. We had a beautiful flicker of blue and a bit of green, and then it went white as she integrated. And I asked her then to think back to that memory that was so prominent from grade 1, only 15-20 minutes before. And she said, oh, it's completely different. I feel very different now. She said, it's kind of like it happened, but they didn't know any better. And I'm okay about it now. And then we were able to use that new perspective and that new feeling of sticking up for herself and being supportive of herself, integrating that part that felt embarrassed and bullied, to strengthen her ability to say no to the bullies now, that it's not my shit, it's your shit. And this helped her to then see her experience that she's experiencing now with her, fancy school and mean bullying lecturer. It's enabled her to actually stand up for herself and create a new set of boundaries so that she can now take that into her current life experience and alter the way that she allows other people to speak to her. So I'm really excited for her. But my God, she's got some trauma that's really entwined in her life. It's not major big trauma, but it was consistent small little traumas throughout her entire childhood that have unfortunately been consistent in her adulthood. Her family still treat her the same way, and that's why it's been really hard for her to resolve these issues. But going back to the perspective of therapeutic coaching, this is how we can help our clients by remaining in our scope of practice, but also helping them clear out the unresolved emotions by stepping into those uncomfortable emotions of the past from a new perspective of the adult and integrating that part with new information, with a new perspective, with resolved emotions and feelings from that time in their life, and bringing in the empowered ability to feel more whole and complete and in control of one's choices or decisions now. So hopefully that's given you an example of something that we can do therapeutically with our coaching that is still remaining within our scope of practice. Now, this takes skill. It does take some training, or at least plenty of practice with clients, and you might not always get it right, particularly in the beginning when you're kind of figuring out, well, what do I do and how do I do it? But that's what practice is for. Practice is about progress, not being able to do it perfectly every time. I've been doing this for a very long time, and my skills have become better and better and better over the years of working with clients and honing my skills and being more in tune with my clients about where they're at. So it's a skill that needs to be developed, but it's also a skill that sometimes needs to be taught and guided when it comes to certain topics, because with inner child work, for example, it's very easy to take someone back to a childhood memory, but if you don't know what to do when something comes up for that person, and you might accidentally re-trigger them and trigger a trauma response, then you're actually doing more harm than good if you don't know how to help guide that person through that trauma or through that trigger that has come from visiting childhood memories. So again, while it's something that we can do for certain things, if it is around certain experiences that are sort of bordering outside of our scope of practice, that's where we really need to err on the side of caution and really go gently. Because if we don't have the skill to know what to do with someone when they are in an old memory, then we might re-trigger them, we might re-traumatize them, and that is not what we want to do. We do not want to re-traumatize anybody. And remember, it is not always necessary to know where certain beliefs or things come from, particularly if the person's blocked it, or if they don't want to revisit it, or if they really don't know because they're not wanting to or willing to. Some part of them doesn't want to go back there. They just want to move forward. Great, let's just focus on moving forward and doing what we need to do to help you take the first steps of moving forward for you. So again, to reiterate, therapy is not coaching. Coaching is not therapy. Two different things. Some of the approaches may overlap. Some of the ways that we work with clients, talk to them, may overlap. But again, coaching is not therapy. So mental health issues, medical issues, things that are way beyond your scope of practice or skill, even if it is within your scope of practice, if your skill is not to that level yet to be able to deal with that client's issues, be honest with them, be honest with yourself. We all have our limits, and the more practiced we are, the more we can break those limits. But we have to be honest with ourselves about where we're at, and we can only meet our clients where our clients are at. If they have other stuff going on, if they are seeing other professionals because they need that additional or deeper care or approach to their recovery or to their healing, we have to respect that process. We don't want to get in the way. We don't want to think we can help everybody when we can't. We want to do no harm. We want to encourage our clients to get the help that they need. And sometimes that won't be with you. That will be with other people. It will be a different approach, a different, deeper therapy. So key points to remember is that coaching is not therapy. We must always work within our scope of practice, even though some issues require more specialized care. There are a lot of things that we can do within our scope of practice to provide a therapeutic approach to recovery and healing, which at whatever kind of that might be. But we always have to respect our client's process of recovery, respect that we may not be the right person for them at that particular time in their recovery. And we also have to respect the process of processing unresolved emotions and our own skill level of how confident we feel to take people through that process, according to our skill level and our ability to know what to do when stuff comes up. So this new module that I'm writing at the moment will give you a lot of skills, will give you an amazing amount of tools to work with people to regulate their system, their nervous system, to self-regulate by using tools to help them practice at home, to self-regulate when they recognize those symptoms and signs of distress or of overwhelm or of chronic stress or their stress triggers being activated in their system, and help them really work from the bottom up to learn somatic approaches to calming their system, to learn exercises and tools to self-soothe, and to be okay feeling the discomfort and it's really just discomfort, the discomfort of feeling into one's emotions when they're difficult. It's uncomfortable to feel some of the things that we need to feel in order to move through them, move past them, move beyond them. The more we push something away, the more it's going to persist in giving us symptoms and signs within our body or our behavior that we really need to address it in order for us to fully be able to move forward. So we have to respect the process of that for each individual client and ourselves, but we also have to be willing to do the work for ourselves. So hopefully all these tools that are going to be in the new module will help you use some of them on yourself for therapeutically helping yourself regulate your own system, to self-soothe, to feel into the discomfort of things that maybe have been too much for you in the past, and to help you feel what it's like to be okay with not being okay, knowing that there are still things you can do to move through and beyond the discomfort of certain emotions. Hopefully this has been a very helpful, very instructive clarification as well as example of therapeutically helping our clients but still remaining within our scope of practice and respecting the boundaries of our skill level and also the limitations of what we can and cannot do, because we still have a wonderful scope to work with our clients in so many different ways within the capacity of holistic life coaching, mind-body practitioning, to help our clients recover and heal. But we also have to respect that there is a limit to that, and sometimes it's best to allow our clients to do the deeper work first before they're ready to really get into the work with us to move forward. It's great to have these skills and help people, but we always have to remember we can only help those who are ready to help themselves, who are willing and able to do the work to show up and help themselves. Big deep breath, everybody. And EFT emotional freedom techniques, foundations and basics are going to be in the new emotional energy clearing module that will be inserted into Mind Body Practitioner. Yay, exciting. So thank you so much everybody for watching. Hopefully you've taken away some really good tips and tools and some insight from today's live. Take care everybody, sending you a lot of love.